And we are live. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. This specific webinar is under the subject of what is the best strategy or hierarchy when it comes to startups and the 5 to 10 team startup. This specific webinar is supervised by Dr. Abdurrahim Agno of Al Akhawayn University. Thank you guys so much that you could make it. We're looking forward to your questions and comments when time has come. And we're going to start by just saying how the webinar is going to go, and then I'm going to give out some definitions so that we can all be on the same page when I'm introducing the people that are joining me or the students that are joining me. Now we're just gonna say that we're going to work on a little bit the history plus the pros and cons, and then at the end we're gonna have a debate and plus a Q&A where we're going to get questions from the audience and answer them to the best of our ability. I'm joined with Rahma. Hello, Rahma.
Hello, Youssef. Thank you for having me. So my name is Rahma. I am a student at Al Akhawayn University, and I will be discussing the first theory of management, which is the classical management. Thank you very much.
Okay. And I'm joined with Yusuf. Hello, Yusuf.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Games, for giving me the floor. So hello, everyone. I'm Yusuf Boustawab. I am really happy to be here with you today in this webinar, and I'm really glad to present the parts of organizational narratives and dialogue.
And then I'm joined with Aisha.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aisha Sarawi. I'm a student at Ahaway University, and I will be presenting the second model management, which is systems thinking.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Selma. Hello, Selma.
Hello, guys. My name is Salma, and I'm a student at Al Akhawayn University. And today I'm going to be so delighted to present to you a topic that is important, which is the transactional model of communication.
Thank you so much. Just to reiterate, we're just going to, for the sake of debate, every single student is going to take a specific management model and explain its history plus its pros and cons. And then at the debate, they're going to take in their point of view, their specific management model. And then we can have a little debate and discussion about all your questions plus the questions that we have already. And so Aisha is going to take care of the systems of thinking. Selma is going to take a transactional model, and Yusuf organizational narratives. So that's basically about it. Now I'm just going to give a little bit of definition when it comes to communication and what comes into play. So we do have in a communication model, we have a sender, which is the person that is the originator or the source of the message. The receiver, who is the receiver, is the person who the sender directs the message to. The message itself, which is the thing that the sender does or say during a communication episode. The noise, which is the influence that either disrupts or shapes the interpretation of message. Hello, guys. I'm really sorry. We're having some technical problems right now. Please give us just a little bit. Hello, everybody, again. I hope you're hearing me well. Hello. Hello, you guys. I guess you guys are all hearing me well. Hello there. I guess everything is sorted. I'm really sorry, guys. Hello. Returning back to what I was saying, and I'm really sorry about this specific technical issue, my computer blue screened, and I'm really sorry about that. I was saying that noise can be physical, can be semantic, can be hierarchical. It can be many different things compared to, depending on the context of your situation. Talking to your boss is not the same thing as talking to your peers, and you may have or notice different noise compared to different things. Just to reiterate, is the audience hearing us well? Does the audience hear us? Okay, I assume that you guys hear me. Okay, so besides noise, there's feedback, and feedback is the activity of providing senders and receivers with responses to their communication ideas, and identities. Okay, and there's channels, which is basically just the thoroughfare, and it all has different regulation onto what you're trying to say. Sending a letter is not like sending an email, which is also not like appearing in person or sending a voice message. Everything has its etiquette, and sometimes you prefer to use something over something else. And last but not least, there's context, which is the physical situation, the global culture context, and the communication history. If you have history with the person, of course, you're going to take that into consideration. Maybe they're closer to you, maybe they're your enemy. It really depends on the context and the situation. Now I'm going to give the floor to Rahma, and she's going to explain to us a little bit more about the history and the pros and cons of the classical management model. Rahma, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Youssef, and hello, everyone. So, one of the things that comes to mind when we hear classical management is that it is possibly an old method of managing company. Well, we can agree on that. The classical period of management began with the Industrial Revolution in the late 1800s. The movement of people from their farms to the country, to the city, or from the plough fields to factories characterized this period. And since so many people joined the city and mostly worked in factories, store managers and factory owners began to explore new and different ways of managing people and work. So they chose a strictly vertical top-down management. So you may ask yourself, what is that? Well, simply, it means that there is a board of directors on top, a president below. Below the president was a bunch of vice president, then department managers, below them supervisors, and last but not least, line workers. And it's called hierarchy. So this classical organization structure assigned privileges according to one's rank and status in the organization. And there were two important classical approaches of managing the company, which were the scientific management and bureaucracy. So they dominated ways of managing during the classical period. Now that you know a bit about what is classical management, let's dive into scientific management and bureaucracy. So scientific management emerged in the early 1900s and was defined by an engineer named Frederick Taylor. Taylor believed management was a science and put forward the idea that owners and managers should operate factories and organizations as efficient machines. So to be more simple, he based his own management criteria on the inner working of a well-made clock, the clock that we know. So he proposed conducting what he called time and motion studies for every task in an organization. Henceforth, business owners and managers had to find the one best way, which is a method requiring the shortest amount of time using the smallest amount of motion to complete their task. And this way of managing divided tasks into discrete, measurable units and trained workers to perform only one task, which made the replacement easy. And it's also established a sense of reward and punishments to workers. And on the other hand, managers performed five functions and five functions only, which were planning the work, organizing the tasks, commanding and or setting goals, coordinating the work, and controlling the workforce, and only these duties. And in general, there was no room for quality improvement at any level. A man either knew how to do his job or didn't. And workers were treated less than human. Managers could fire or hire depending on sex, race, religion, attitude, or relationships. Okay, so now that you know scientific management, let's talk a bit about bureaucracy. Although it might not seem so today, the creation of bureaucracy evolved as a more humane way of managing people in complex organizations. Max Weber, which was a major sociological theorist who observed the rise of scientific management, saw bureaucracies as a mean to overcome the problems of scientific management. And he believed that managed correctly, using universalism or standards of fairness, bureaucracies would stamp out the harsh, inequitable, and often deadly conditions that arose from the poor scientific management. And according to Weber, the ideal bureaucracy must have the following elements: fixed division of labor, a hierarchy of work responsibilities and authority, a set of general operating rules that govern performance, and a separation of the personal lives and professional lives of the workers. And last but not least, a selection of a process based on technical qualifications and equal treatment under the rules for operating business. And as I may say, as like any other theory of management, the classical theory has its own pros and cons, or advantages and disadvantages, which are typically a clear structure for the advantages, a clear structure for management, its function and operations, the division of labor that can make tasks easier and more efficient to accomplish, which can enhance productivity, of course, and a clear definition of employee roles and tasks with little left to guesswork. So the president has had his own job, managers, supervisors, line workers, etc. And of course, it has flaws. So when the theory is put into actions, companies can see their production number increase. And but there are, however, some flaws that make this particular management model less than attractive in workplaces. For example, the classical management theory creates pressure and burden among the employees. It is also based upon the one best way, which is applicable to simple organization structures, and it does not really fit complex structures nowadays. And moreover, it focuses on individual performance of the employees and categorizes them into efficient and inefficient. And last but not least, it's the theory kills the creativity of the workers and creates frustrations among the employees. So here it is for classical management. I'll leave the floor to Mr. Youssef. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahma, so much for giving us this insight on this history plus the pros and cons on the classical management. Now I call into the floor Selma, and she is going to tell us more about the transactional model as well as its pros and cons and why we should use and why we shouldn't in a specific context. Selma, here, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So today, guys, I'm going to be presenting the transactional model of communication, and I'm going to be starting by giving a small and brief definition. So, transactional model is the cycle of non-stop change and transformation where each part is changing. For example, the individuals, their surroundings, and the medium utilized. So these are variables. And so because of this, it expects the communicators to be free and act in a way that they need. So the question that comes to our minds is, what is the importance of interpersonal communication or intrapersonal communication? So relational abilities are significant for conveying and working with gatherings and people in your own expert life. Individuals with solid relational abilities will in general form great connection and can cooperate within a work organization. So they see family, companions, collaborators, and customers well. Then I'm going to move to the next part, which is the components of the transactional model. So as you guys know, communication relies on the sender, the message, and the receiver. So these three components have other components within them. So first, I'm going to start by encoding. Encoding, it alludes to the way toward taking a thought or mental picture, connecting that picture with words, and afterward talking those words so as to pass on a message. The next part is decoding. So on another part, it's the converse cycle of tuning into words, pondering them, and transforming these words into mental pictures. So when someone sends you a message, you try to picture it in your mind, and then you get the whole message. The term communicator alludes to the entirety of the individuals in the collaboration or discourse setting. It is utilized rather than sender and recipient, since when we are speaking with others, we are not just communicating something specific. We are accepting messages from each other at the same time. Then we're moving to the message. The message includes those verbal and nonverbal practices instituted by communicators that are deciphered with importance by others. So the verbal segment of the message alludes to the word that we express, while the nonverbal bit incorporates our manner of speaking, meaning eye contact, body gestures, stance, motions, body developments, individual appearance, eye contact, the manner in which we use our space. Then there is the channel. For sure, it's essentially the methods through which the message ventures, so through the message is sent. In eye-to-eye correspondence, the channel includes the entirety of our faculties. So the channel is the thing that we see, hear, contact, smell, and maybe we taste. So it's abstract and at the same time a bit concrete. So the following and the last part of the model of correspondence is commotion. Commotion refers to noise, and noise alludes to whatever meddles with message transmission or gathering. So, what are the pros and advantages of this model, of the transactional model of communication? So, first of all, it focuses on psychological determinants of the stress response over which we do not have control and emphasizes the personal nature and individuality of the stress response. Then it emphasizes each individual's role in interpreting the message that they get. For example, each one has their own point of view when they receive a message. So it allows more variability in the human stress response and helps explain why different individuals view a message in their own perspective in a different situation. Then it allows for the fact that circumstances under which they occur can change over time. So we call this flexibility. Then we're moving to the cons of the transactional model of communication. Some may see it as a very simplistic model of communication because it does not account for the socio, bio, and environmental factors, meaning that it includes only emotions and feelings. And some psychologists doubt that we actually have to appraise something and judge of the worth of something. And it's difficult to test through experimental research because of its subjective nature. Because transactional model may be formal, but it stays subjective. Next, I'm going to leave the floor to Mr. Games to continue the discussion.
Thank you so much, Salma. Just to reiterate for our new viewers, this is a webinar conducted and supervised by Dr. Abdurrahim Agnaw at Al Akhawain University. We're talking about best hierarchy for startups, and what we're doing right now is just explaining a little bit of the history plus the pros and cons of every management style, and then at the end we're going to have a little debate and figure out what is the best hierarchy for a 5 to 10 team startup. Now I'm going to give the floor to Aisha, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit more about systems of thinking. Aisha, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Yusuf. Hello, guys. Today I'm going to talk about the systems of thinking theory. I will start by giving you a little bit of history about it. Then, as we go on, I will give you the pros and cons, and as well as deeper explanations. So, the first thing that we need to know about this system is that it combines between holism and interdependence. Holism is basically having the organization become literal parts of the word and not be represented as isolated entities. Everyone in the organization in a systems thinking kind of strategy is interconnected with each other, and to achieve success, all the members need to be successful and not only one person out of the team. A system could be defined as a new way to conceptualize relationships, pointing out to new kinds of order. Nowadays, this word has been steadily used by business people in the business world and have been so for the past couple of years. And this system consists of patterns of interaction throughout its components, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes, and is not part of bureaucracy nor of labor division. To understand the system a little bit better, try to think of it as a set of family relationships in which each family member has a say in the other's understandings, meanings, and communication. And on the other hand, each and every single member are interconnected with each other. Now we will talk about the components of systems thinking theory. The components are environment, interdependence, goal, feedback, and finally openness, order, and contingency. I'll start by getting into the environment, which takes me back to what I said about holism. Environment basically means that the startups represent integral parts of the word. Then I will talk about interdependence, which means that all of the members of the organization are interconnected with each other. Thirdly, we got the goal. The goal is mainly influenced by the environment. It is discussed with all of the organization entities and with all of the members and executives. Feedback is the transmission of the information about a result or an action. We have the positive and the negative feedback. The negative feedback resets us far away from the original goal, whereas the positive one permits new opportunities for growth. Finally, we got openness, order, and contingency. These terms refute the fact that there is only one way to achieve success. And to succeed in an organization, we need to be open, to have an organized, evolving pattern, and to have a consistent work ethic. Systems of theory have contributed in communication in 3 different ways. The first one is the idea of communication networks. The second one is the contingent nature of decision making. And lastly, the third one would be feedbacks important within the organization. Now, what we need to know is that these ideas have contributed to the business and professional communication, have contributed to that by putting up direct links between the organizational system and the communication in it. The first one, which is communication flow in networks, we need to know that 2 patterns stand out in an organization communication system, the formal and the informal chains of command. The formal one refers to the information being transmitted through formal chains, such as television, emails, and such. And the informal one, on the other hand, leaves the information to be freely transmitted, whatever, but not through formal chains. It is more of a relationship kind of situation. Then we have the contingent nature of decision making. Basically, it is reviewing communication flow, reveals the organization interconnection and feedback. And rather than just staying still and assume that one decision will make the whole thing work, companies prefer this strategy as it helps them review their decisions, whatever there's a shift or growth in information. The last one is the feedback and the health of a system. And basically, it is maintaining an interconnected startup with open communication. Plays a lot on the organization's health. These lines of communication make sure the feedback is well received, and whether it is negative or positive, we can work more on it to grow from it. Now, I will give you a little bit of advantages about this system, since I really do believe that it is one of the best ones for small startups, especially the ones where you get from 5 to 10 people. So I think it could be a really good system, since in business nowadays, it is very stressful and it can be tense sometimes. It could lead to mental breakdowns. And there's many changes that you can do to your business following this strategy. And change in business can be really healthy, as it helps us get away a little bit from stagnation. So there's that. Then secondly, I guess the fact that we have open lines in communication that create direct channels that can operate immediately in case of an emergency also can be beneficial in a small startup. Finally, I guess that in this system, we can take back all the broken systems and redesign them into new evolving ones, which can be very beneficial for the new businesses coming up nowadays. However, such as every strategy out there, there are disadvantages. And the first one might be that even though the organization is little, we have communication flows that go smoothly and easily. However, if the company grows, all the branches expand more and more, and people add into the company, which makes it harder to have kind of reunions and make like group decisions. Another way would be managing crises, which can be hard also if the company grows. Finally, I guess one of the major disadvantages of this system would be that all of the executives are all on equal ground. However, if our company again grows, this could get to major control problems. And even though many companies have found this strategy to be efficient, we still gotta make sure that the communication still flows. So I guess this is it for the systems thinking and theory. I will leave the floor to Mr. Yusuf, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Now, last but not least, we have Yusuf, who is going to be talking to us a little bit about the conversational narratives and how that is useful in a startup. And Yusuf, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Games, for giving me the floor. So, good morning, everyone. And as I said previously, I am really glad to be here with you today. So, to understand more how the components of the communication process are linked to the evolution of theories of organization, management, and communication, I will cover the part of organizational narratives and dialogue. As we will see today, this theory is a little bit different from the transactional model, the classical management, and systems theory of thinking. In addition, this theory shows us how our personal and professional experiences can affect the global working place, either positively or negatively. So, theorists have considered the perspective of this theory as the narrative view, or what we call paradigm. So the narrative paradigm reflects the idea that a company will follow a specific communication process based on its personal ethics, identities, and aims. Furthermore, these ethics and aims are coming from the ongoing story of the boss and his employees. Each one has a central character on what he or she experienced professionally or personally. So now we will move and present the four types of organizational narratives that arises as forms of business and professional communication. So first, we will start by the organizational stories. This term is actually referring to how problems were solved, how events happened, and how things were done around here, in this specific place. We can give the example of an ancient company that follows a specific script to organize events, for example. This way of doing things is based on a long process of the living time of the company. Second, we have the work hate narratives. This type of organizational stories exposes narrative based on damages and violence that were done to the employees of a specific company. Work hate narratives are usually used to redeem equity in a specific position. Third, we have the narrative recovery. So different stories of employees are gathered in a visible manner to perceive the history of the organization in a personal perception. So the aim of the narrative recovery is actually to consult. Therefore, the chapter mentioned that some consultants uses key questions to prompt the narratives, such as what's brought you to work here or what vision do you have for your future here in this work. So the fourth type of organizational narratives is the organizational change. I will refer to an important fact about this type, which is about conversation. Productive or creative change in a specific workplace always began with conversation. The responsibility of communication in a workplace is to transmit ideas to reality. In other words, communication brings thoughts, concepts, and ideas for change into existence. So after covering the organizational narratives, I will move on to dialogue. So as we know, dialogue is a process in which two individuals could hear and talk with each other in a systematic manner. In addition, individuals should make a conscious effort in order to understand and interact with others' perspectives. Dialogue's aim is to help individuals to reach agreements, mutual growth, mutual respect, of course. So by that, we can clearly see that dialogue is a powerful and dominant form of communication. A continuum of the following everyday forms of talk has been developed by Harold Lloyd Goodall, who was an expert in human communication. So first, as you can see, we have fatigue communication, which is our daily exchanges of small talk. We use fatigue communication with our everyday entourage, friends, or family. However, employees can also use fatigue communication in a workplace, but in specific familiar situations. So second, we have the ordinary conversation. This is about an exchange of information where individuals discuss between each other. I can give the example of a discussion between two individuals where they present and they receive information in a reciprocal manner. Third, we have the skilled conversation and professional communication. So there are a lot of examples about this third form of talk, such as interviews, negotiations, or even team presentations. As you can see, we as a team are actually using this form of talk in order to present you in a respectable method these different theories of organization, management, and communication. The fourth form of talks that I will cover right now is about personal narratives, which are also, we can call them stories. So different stories that are parts from each individual's lifetime are part of the personal narrative. The final and the most important form of talk is dialogue. So as we mentioned previously, dialogue is a conversation intended at mutual growth. And according to the chapter, the most conscious form of communication in an organization is dialogue. So conscious communication as an important feature in dialogue covers two main forms, mindless communication and mindful communication. On one hand, mindless communication is when an individual acts by habit or by practice. In addition, most of our everyday interactions with our entourage doesn't require a specific effort in terms of communication. The term entourage here means our families, friends, and colleagues. So I am personally interacting in a mindless way in my everyday work. Thanks to my personal experience here at Lahawa University as a student, of course, I gained a lot in terms of managing a rigorous schedule since my first year here at Lahawa University, friend. And I was communicating and I still interacting in a way as if I had a script to follow. I was and I still actually behaving in a mindless way. A positive point about mindless communication is that some of researchers recommended that mindlessness is a way where the brain preserves its vivacity to more difficult and challenging situations. This idea is not showing that we should rely on mindless communication or fatigue communication in our everyday life. However, I consider it as a net disadvantage because relying only on mindlessness could put you in a specific position where you will find that your brain is limited in terms of creativity and cognitive capacity. In addition, this will affect you directly and it will stop you from building inventive reactions. If an employee, for example, is relying only on mindlessness, he could easily face several problems that are related on communication strategies that we familiarize to modern changes. On the other hand, mindful communication gives you the ability to be adaptable to different situations. Also, it gives you the capacity to be flexible vis-a-vis different individuals' perspectives. By mindful communication, we can use communication strategies to avoid some awkward moments that could easily happen in a workplace. If an employee, for example, have a business travel outside his native country, he should be aware of cultural and social differences in that specific country. Additionally, he should behave in a mindful way where he must make a purposeful and rational choice in terms of communication in that specific workplace. Being conscious in terms of communication actually reflects the mindful communication, which also requires several steps, such as making an analysis about different communication situations, thinking in a critical way about different communication options that are, of course, available to us, and finally, familiarizing our message in order to influence the receiver, and finally evaluating, of course, the feedback. So thank you all for listening to me, and Mr. Games, the flow is yours.
Thank you so much. Now that we've talked about the main management styles and we did know about their history and their pros and cons, we're going to get to the debate part where everybody is going to come in. And I'm going to start this with one single question that is, should we include emotions in the workplace, or is it productive to include emotions? Or should we just separate it and say that professional life is professional life and personal life is personal life? And keep in mind, guys, that this is in the context of a 5 to 10 startup team.
Okay, so I guess I'll be going first on this question about emotions. I think it would be a really good idea to include emotions in a workplace because knowing each other's feelings as workers and understanding each other's thought process can help us solve conflicts real quickly and more efficiently. And also, it will help us have a more efficient communication flow between each other during reunions and while making important decisions.
Okay, so I think from my own point of view that the outcomes of emotions and feelings in the workplace environment is that the two practices and perspectives have considerable hugeness for people, gatherings in society. So, positive feelings in the work environment assist representatives with acquiring good results, including accomplishment, work advancement, and more excellent social settings. So, perceiving your feelings and figuring out how to oversee them is one of the most significant aptitudes you can have, and actually individuals who are acceptable at seeing how they feel and can quiet themselves down or change their conduct are bound to do well throughout everyday life, have sound connections, and oversee troubles and setbacks. So when you include your emotions in the workplace, you are able to understand and to better understand people around you. So I think this is my own point of view.
Personally, I think that emotions have a purpose, an adaptive function, which is simply to mobilize us to deal quickly with important interpersonal events, which is very important in a complex or more simple corporation or startup. And the more we understand them, the more we understand what drives behaviors. But I do think that we do have to display our emotions strategically, respecting the environment that we are in a way that we perceive emotions and have the ability to correctly identify ourselves and others, what ourselves and others are feeling. We do have to use emotions strategically, knowing that we are still in a workplace. We have to understand emotions, try to understand our coworkers' emotions and how they want to relay the idea, and of course managing them and knowing what to display and what not to display in a workplace and in a professional environment. So in a conclusion, I do think that we have to meddle emotions and professionalism, but to a certain extent. So, yeah.
So thank you all. Thank you all for giving us your respectful perspectives. But I actually disagree with you in terms of using emotions in a specific workplace. So I firmly believe that emotions should not be part of our professional life. In addition, our emotions could affect our professional choices, which can directly lead us to be part of injustice. I just can give the example of a judge who should definitely not use emotions in his workplace. Otherwise, it would cost someone's life. So, the conclusion, I disagree with the fact that we need to use emotions in a specific company. Thank you for the questions, Mr. Games.
And I have one second question,
Of
just
course.
to kind of round up this specific debate and webinar. The title does say what is the best hierarchy for a startup, and what do you guys think is the best hierarchy for a startup, for a 5 to 10 team startup?
Okay, so I personally believe that systems of thinking theory is the best strategy for a 5 to 10 startup, since it's a small group of people, so we need to have some sort of understanding between each other. And since the system gives us the opportunity to be all on equal ground and have this open line of communication and understand each other out, I guess that it would be better, because it would be better we would know who we are and we would know each other on personal levels. So it would make decision making, reunions, and even integration with other organizations even easier, and the growth might be amazing. If we're going to stay on between a 5 to 10 people team, if we go with the strategy, it might be working well. And even if the company grows to like more than 10 people, I would say 15, it would still be working well.
I
I
definitely do agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do agree that the systems of thinking is a very interpersonal and interrelated type of system that gives a startup from 5 to 10 people definitely the boost and the emotional involvement that they need to go with their mission statement. And go ahead, Selma.
Yes, I think she's right. And not to add that, the transactional model, I think it's the best hierarchy for a startup, because when you include your emotions, you are taking into account what other people may feel. Therefore, in a work organization, we are all one team. Therefore, we have to be in solidarity and understand each other needs and each other beliefs and comprehend what other people want to. So we're not the only one in a team. We're not the only one in a work organization. Therefore, it's important to see it from another point of view.
Now, I guess that since we only have 5 minutes for questions, I'm going to take two more questions from the audience. Amin said that what would you prefer? Would you prefer a leader or a boss? And to just, I guess, give my 2 cents or definition of what a leader is or what a boss is, A leader is a person that inspires you. A leader is a person that is working with you towards the same goal, doing the same thing that you're doing, but inspires the group and gives you emotional involvement in a sense to go about um, the mission statement and going about all the work and the um, pretty much that. And a boss is a person that is just a supervisor in a sense. He commands you to do one thing or do the other. And when you finish up with a task, he commands you to give another task. And I would guess that a boss would take like all the credit for everything. And so your team is just basically doing the work and getting no credit for it. But that's basically my definition for it, and I'm gonna leave the floor open to for you guys to respond to this question.
Thank you, Mr. Game. So I personally think that a startup is all about community and teamwork and building a strong connection between teammates and co-workers. And in this case, leaders are the best fit for a startup, especially a 5 to 10 startups where all the importance goes on how the environment is between the co-workers. So as we know, leaders are more compassionate, bosses are cold, and it can be easy to equate professionalism with robot-like impersonal behavior, which is the behavior of most of the bosses that we see in big companies. Moreover, leaders say we and bosses say I. So to explain a bit, a we mentality shifts the office dynamic from trying to make the boss happy to a spirit of teamwork and goal setting and accomplishment, which is the best fit for a startup. People also respect leaders more and fear bosses, and earning respect from everyone on a team takes time and commitment, yes, but the rewards are worth every ounce of efforts. Leaders give credit where it's due, and bosses normally only take the credit. And last but not least, leaders, they see the delegation as their best friend, whereas bosses see it as an enemy. So if a delegation is the leader's best friend, then micromanagement is the enemy. So a delegation equates to trust, and micromanagement equates to distrust. So micromanagement is the management that we often find in big companies. So I stay on my point of view, that is that leaders are the best fit for a startup. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Guys, we kind of don't have too much time, so I'm just going to go and pick one more question from the audience. This question is given by Aya, and she's saying, I guess as a follow-up to Amin's question, why can't we have a boss and a leader in a startup?
Okay, I will thank you, Mr. Games, of course, for giving us this question. So I think that it is a really interesting question because we can actually have a boss and a leader in a specific startup. I think that it will be the same relationship between the executive branch and the legislative branch in democratic countries. So I think that this combination of a boss and a leader in one company could give us a system of checks and balances in a specific workplace, which in my own perspective will help the specific company to be more creative, productive, and also balanced. Thank you, Mr. Games, for asking us this question.
But would you think that in a team of 5 to 10 people, is it like necessary to have a boss and a leader, or do you think that one of them is enough?
I think in a team of 5, 10 people, I think that just one of them is enough. And for me, I do believe that bosses are better than the leaders, because I think that we can say everyone is saying that bosses give orders and sit on sidelines, but with that they push employees to work in an efficient manner. And everyone knows that head of states in the world are not leaders; they are bosses who execute in a legitimate manner. So a boss is an experienced individual in his field. So I think that he has the legitimate power to execute and to give orders and to not contribute in those orders. So this is my point, and I respect all
the other perspectives of my classmates, of course.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you guys so much. Unfortunately,
Thank you,
we
everyone.
don't have too much time. We might have to wrap this up and say that what is the conclusion for this specific webinar, and the conclusion is what we think the best hierarchy for a startup is definitely the systems of thinking model, and having an interconnected team is way better, and having also emotional involvement is way better than to just try and separate everything and say that professional life is professional life, and going from 2 to 6, and when 6 hits, you're just not connected nor involved in anything else until the next day. And I feel like a startup does need to use this emotional involvement of the team members, and so they must have also a leader that does inspire them and tells them where they should go and how they should work. And obviously, I do respect your point of view, Yusuf. Unfortunately, we can't really talk about this too much. And I would say that thank you guys so much for being here with me. Thank you to the audience to listen
Thank
to
you for
us and
having us.
see what our point of view is. And thank you guys so much. And I really hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much.
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for everyone
Thank you,
who
guys.
saw it. Thank you very much.